To find the probability, so the first thing, the aim for today's class is to understand Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. But then the first aim is actually to find out the probability, okay, or to understand what kind of probability logic is something that we are going to use today, okay. So let's imagine this, okay. This is a very simple idea that that we have, okay. Okay, so what happens is this. So let me just start on a clean slate. Okay. So usually when we have these classes on a board or something, it's easy, right? So, yeah, it becomes a bit, handling becomes an important part. So let's go back to the very basics. For in general, you know that whenever I say probability, I mean that the total number of cases and the total number of favorable cases. Okay. So whenever I am tossing a head, I want to get a head or a tail, and suppose I want to get head. So favorable case is only one, and the total number of cases might be head or a tail. So that is two. So that is what is probability, which we have grown up with, right? Since our class, school days, or even in our higher secondary and so on. But then what happens is that when the number of values becomes more and more, okay, you have got more and more variables involved. You cannot really do it that simply. You need to do a lot of other analysis. For example, let's say you use commutation, permutation, okay. So permutation and combination, sorry, not commutation, permutation and combination, those logics, everything comes into the picture so that we can actually include all the possibilities. So before I begin, let's take this very simple idea that let's consider 12 alphabets, okay. So we have got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, okay. And what we do, okay, try to understand this logically, okay. What we do is we arrange these letters, and what do? We take three containers and arrange them without replacement. So by without replacement, I mean that if I have ABC in one container, the other container cannot have ABC, okay? It will be totally different. So all of them are more or less having a unique behavior here. So let's say I have got container 1 and there are 3 letters. I have got container 2 and then there are 3 letters, okay? And then container 3 and then we have got, let's say, 5 letters, okay? So 3, 4 and 5. So we have got 3 containers and then we have arranged them. Now, in general, if I don't take a container and try to arrange 12 alphabets, I can arrange them in factorial 12 ways. This is something which you already know, okay? So this is the possible arrangement without the container, okay? No container as such, okay? So if we actually don't have a container, okay, uh, then what we can do is 12 arrangements. But if we have container, we do have a container, then the arrangement will be different now. See, I cannot have all the possible arrangements, because if there is one kind of arrangement in one container, those three cannot come to the other container, okay? So it's not possible. So that means those three which are there in container 1 can be arranged in factorial 3 ways, like A, B, C, A, C, B, B, A, C, and so on. Okay, factorial 3 ways you can arrange them. And then the second container you can arrange in factorial 4, and the third container you can arrange in factorial 5. So this is a very general statement. So if I have n number of letters, okay, so we are going to see that this is not going to be letter, but this is going to be more or less molecules, okay. So if we have got n number, we can actually arrange them in factorial n ways, and then at the bottom, if they are divided into different containers, okay, if you have got a box something like this, okay, and if you are dividing it into, let's say, 3 parts, okay, so this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is how you are arranging things, okay. So you can have n number of divisions. So it can start from here, it can go up to n, okay. So it can go up to n, it can start from 1. So that's why I've written I is equal to 1 to n, and this will be factorial ni. So n1 would be the first container, n2 would be the second container, okay. How many are there in first container would be factorial that value. And so this is something which is done, okay. Now what we do, we assume further, okay. We assume further that we consider a sub container, not just a container. What's the reason? See, what we are going to do is we are going to analyze gas molecules within a container. Okay, and if we divide that container into different parts, we cannot really predict how many number of particles can be there in a container. Okay, so that's why we are also considering something which we call as a sub container. Okay, so if we consider this the idea of sub container, we can say that we have got n containers. Okay, we have got n containers with GI subcontainers. Okay, we have got n containers with GI subcontainers. That means now the possible number of arrangements will be more. It will be multiplied by GI to the power Ni. Okay, so you might ask why it is GI to the power Ni. See, this is basic probability. What happens is, if you take an example, let's consider you have got 3 particles and it can be arranged in 2 to the power 3 ways in 2 containers, right? What does it mean? Let's say I have got 3 particles. Okay, let's say I have got 3 coins. Okay, and 3 coins, how many ways I can get the arrangement? So the possible arrangements are, I think this is something which you have already done: head, head, tail. Okay, this is one arrangement, and then you can have head, tail, head. This is one more arrangement. Okay, then you can have tail, head, head, and in this way we can actually have 8 arrangements. Okay, so can we have that? Let's see. So what we do is this. Okay, a head and then head and then again head. Okay, so we already have 4 here. Then we can actually take tail, head, tail. Okay, and then we can have tail, tail, head. So when we do it practically, we see that these are actually possible. Okay, what we can have is head, tail, tail. Okay, and then we can have a tail, tail, tail. So you see, basically have got 8 arrangements. So this was a simple case. We have got 3 coins. So these are the 3 particles. Okay, so these 3 particles are nothing but can be referred to as 3 coins here. So 3 coins. Okay, and then they can be arranged in 2 to the power 3 ways. So that is the number of outputs that you are having possible. That means either a head or a tail to the power the number of coins that you have. That is how you arrange it. Okay, so similarly, in a similar way, we can say that this is the number of particles that can be arranged in GI to the power Ni ways. So GI is the number of possible outputs that we can have. That means the number of possible subcontainer in this case. Okay, and Ni is nothing but the total number of molecules that we have. So this is actually the formula that we are going to use for Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. Very important. Okay, and that's why I'm taking this now at the beginning. Okay, so the beginning I'm explaining you this because this will be used for your Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. So this is an important example or important understanding of probability that needs to be understood. Okay, next, one more concept that we should know. Now, whenever I told about statistical mechanics from the last class onwards, even in classical mechanics at some point, we said that the system must be in equilibrium. Okay, it must be in equilibrium. Okay, so what do you mean by a system in equilibrium? There are certain conditions. If it is a chaotic system which is not in equilibrium, study of this system becomes more and more complicated. So I don't want to complicate things. I want to actually study a stable system first. Because if you want to express a complicated system using a mathematical expression, you can't. Okay, you have got a lot of variables which are coming, so you cannot really predict what are the variables and how will the variable behave. But when you are considering a stable system, you can really predict that after this much amount of time, how is the system going to behave. So these kind of system is something which we are actually studying in statistical mechanics. Okay, so when we actually want to find out the most probable velocity, so if you have some gas enclosed within a system and you want to find out what is the most probable velocity, you basically consider it to be a stable system. Okay, a system which is in equilibrium. So there are certain conditions for a system to be in equilibrium. Okay, the first point is, these are some of the points we should always remember. Okay, the total number of particle in the system is constant. Okay, so whenever we are doing statistical mechanics from now onwards, we are going to look into it from this point of view. Okay, the total number of particles. So this will actually remain constant. So let's say there are containers. Okay, and then there are different sections of that box, 1, 2, 3 up to k section. So we can say n1 plus n2 up to nk will remain constant. So n might be the total number of particles, okay, and these particles might be divided into various sections within the system, okay. So don't get confused here. This might be the entire system, okay, and this will actually have n particles, but then this system might be divided into different sections, okay. It's possible different sections, n1 n2, equal sections, unequal sections, whatever may be, but then it will actually add up and it will be a constant, okay. So that means if you just take derivative of that, okay, partial differentiation, variation of that, okay, if you take a very small change in that, there is not going to be any, it's basically going to be a 0. So delta of n is going to be 0 because this is constant, because delta of a constant is 0, right? So that means if you just take summation of delta I ni, so this is summation over I, okay, this is summation over I, this is also going to be 0, okay. A similar case also exists when we actually consider energy, okay. A similar case also exists when we consider energy. So let's take the next case, which is total energy of, so how do we actually understand total energy of the system? So if you consider the total energy of a system, each of these boxes, okay, each of these cabins or small locations which has got n1 particle will have energy E1. The second location might have energy E2. So what I mean is that different parts of the box might have different energy, but then the total energy will remain constant. So the total energy, this one would be like n1 particle into energy of energy, okay, E1, n2 particle energy E2 of those n2 particles, nk particles are there whose energy is ek, okay, or and then if we add them up, this again becomes constant. So if you take delta of that, that again is nothing but 0. So this is 0. So that means that even if you take a summation over I, okay, summation over this summation epsilon I delta ni must be equal to 0. This is the second condition of equilibrium. Entire statistical mechanics, okay, or at least the most part of it is based on this idea that you are studying a stable system in equilibrium. And what do I mean by equilibrium? Well, in classical mechanics, we said that it was the force that is acting on the system which actually is constant, okay. It's basically having an equal force applied, okay. But then when we talk about statistical mechanics, you know, we are talking more about thermodynamics here. If we do that, we have to include the energy part also. So the final idea that we have is this is the final idea. The probability in equilibrium state is maximum, okay. So you know, when I say it is, I do mean the probability is maximum. That means that it is definitely probable. So if I say that the probability of rain today is 1, that means I know that it's going to rain, okay. So that is what is probability is all about. We all have that clear idea here. So probability is maximum, and that means if we take log of p, it's going to be a maximum value, okay. So let's say it's 1, okay. So if we take delta of log p, that means delta of 1, okay, that's going to be nothing but 0, okay. So probability is measured in log of p, okay. So this log of p is the entire probability, okay. Don't get confused that p is 1, so how can log p be 1, okay. It's not that. Log p is considered as a probability because we do plot it on a logarithmic scale, and the delta of log p is going. So these are the three important assumptions when we talk about statistical equilibrium. Very important, okay. One more concept that we should know before we actually can derive the Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution, which is the aim of this lecture. We should know what is Lagrange multiplier, okay, Lagrange's multiplier. So you might not have come across this till now, but you will come in the near future when we are actually trying to minimize or maximize a function. So it's basically a mathematical tool, okay? It's usually a mathematical tool, okay? And it is actually used to minimize or maximize a function. What do I mean by minimize or maximize a function? For example, let's say there is a factory, okay, try to understand this, not written anything there. Let's say there is a factory which produces two products, okay, one is product A and one is product B, okay. So you know, you have to maximize the value in such a way that there might not be producing equal amount of A and B, but the profit should be maximum. Okay, so how many number of A should I produce, how many number of B should I produce, so that I get maximum profit. Okay, so these kind of calculations are done. Okay, and for this the mathematical tool that is used is called maxima or minima. Okay, and if you use Lagrange's multiplier, you can actually arrive at this maxima or this minimum. So this is what is called a Lagrangian multiplier. These are actually nothing but certain constants. So in this case, lambda is actually the Lagrange multiplier. Okay, the Lagrange's multiplier is called lambda here. Okay, and gx is basically a function. So there are certain constraints. Like for example, that factor that I said, a constraint might be the amount of money that you can spend. Okay, for manufacturing a particular product. So you take that constraint, consider that constraint. You consider the Lagrangian on one side. Okay, we already have the equation of Lagrangian. We already know what is Lagrangian. Okay, and then this lambda is called the Lagrangian multiplier. So we're not going too deep into it because I think this is right now out of scope. Okay, but will use it only once or twice. Okay, so that's why I'm not explaining this much. Okay, so this is important, and that is why we are doing it here. Okay.